Is the new player experience in Guild Wars 2 really that bad? Or is it just not good? Let's see what this guy has to say. I'm actually quite interested in this topic because honestly, while I still remember my new player experience um, when I just started playing Guild Wars 2, what I still remember is that I did not have a good experience early on. Right, and I did say that's like as bad as it is, and I don't like saying it, that Guild Wars 2 requires like about 100 hours to start getting really good. And I hate that it does because I wish the first 100 hours were not as bad. I also feel like the way I played Guild Wars 2 was similar to how I would play World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy 14, and I think that was one of the main issues. But that was because of my mentality, not so much because of the game. However, the game is lacking in the early stages of it. But let's see what this guy has to say.
Alright, another nonsense video regarding Guild Wars 2 and this time mainly about the new player experience. So the most common opinion is that Guild Wars 2 is the best new player friendly MMO you can find on the market and the game values your time more than any other MMORPG. And honestly, I don't think that is the case. In fact,
I don't think this is the best new player friendly experience. However, I do think it does value your time more than any other MMORPG because there is no, how should I say it? You're not paying for your time. You can pretty much do whatever you want in the game. Obviously, 1 to 80 is a lot more limited, but still, I feel like you don't ever feel like you wasted your time in Guild Wars 2 because there's no like carrot to chase realistically. Like you make your own carrots, so you decide what you want to do. But in that regard, I feel like it does respect your time. However, the experience itself, especially 1 to 80, which by the way, 1 to 80 is really fast overall. It's not like it's not like World of Warcraft fast as it is now, but it is pretty fast. So yeah, again, I would say still the first few hours are definitely. Eh.
the game actually struggles to keep new players attached.
Yes, I
But
agree with
before I
that.
get into that main topic regarding my nonsense videos for Guild Wars 2, I try to keep them focused on one specific topic, but I will put more minor topics into these videos that are to a certain extent attached to the main issue. Because since a lot of comments are very often about multiple things, I try to
Yeah.
provide multiple topics so everybody has a chance to prove me wrong.
90% of the time, I have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about.
I always said like, yes, I would say the early game experience. But again, if you come with a mentality like me, where I came from World of Warcraft, whatever, and not the mentality of just like let's explore the world, let's just like see what this world has to offer, and if you just go like from quest to quest, like heart to heart or whatever, just like you're not like if you just think about it's like oh man I just want to do the story, yeah, unfortunately the story, especially up until Heart of Thorns, kind of including Heart of Thorns, not that great. I mean, Living World 1 and 2 were decent, Heart of Thorns had its issues, but after that gets like fucking amazing. You know, Icebrood Saga is a debatable, but I feel like he is right. Players would find it hard to get attached to this world because the world. I mean, fuck man, it's hard to. The world does offer a lot, but because it doesn't give you any directions, it's kind of like I wish like the first couple of zones, like especially like the first main zone for each race, would introduce you to certain things that the world has to offer, right? Like it would actually guide you to a place that has something happening and like give you like a little like hey, these are dynamic events, they happen all throughout the world, you will encounter them, yada yada yada, right? And then it's like maybe some something that has to do with combat, like how combos work. There's like really not any introductory to the world, and it's a lot of like discover on your own, and then you have to watch YouTube videos essentially, because like, dude, I didn't even know about combos until End of Dragons, because there was one of your first quests, like one of the first events there, or like hearts to fill, had to do with like beating this NPC, but the only way to beat it is to use a combo. And I was like, what the fuck is a combo? Like, it took me like 20 minutes to understand what the hell it was talking about, right? So in that regard, yeah, the game does really poorly at explaining itself and like introducing you to different things, right? Give you like a mini jumping puzzle introductory or whatever, right? It doesn't have to be very complicated. It's just to give you an idea of like what the game has to offer. And I feel like the game does lack that. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I wish there was more introductory, like a mini tutorial kind of area, because the game really doesn't have any tutorials, and it's just really just like, go do whatever the fuck you want. You'll figure it out.
And it becomes more and more obvious to me that negative videos towards Guild Wars 2 aren't received very well. And I always get that feeling that I have to explain at the beginning of my nonsense videos that I want to provide feedback and some sort of a platform for people to share their opinion in the comments, why and what they dislike about Guild Wars 2. It feels like most people who want to provide feedback become more and more frustrated for a lot of reasons I go more into detail about at the end of this video. So I will try to kinda shift my nonsense videos for Guild Wars 2 more into random talk videos. I still hope someone with a bigger platform or reach would point out flaws within the game, but yeah, I guess that is something that will never happen. I am very aware by now how well received.
The problem with what he just said, people with more reach and stuff like that, like for example, Teapot has more reach, Mukluk has more reach, but he already reaches the Guild Wars 2 crowd, right? Which again, it's great for feedback because it might hit the developers will probably see and stuff like that, but this doesn't. I want the reach to reach people outside of Guild Wars 2, right? For people to kind of get an idea of Guild Wars 2 before, like, put that on their map, right? I don't know if, like, I want them to get the feedback so much as I want them to get, like, the good aspects of Guild Wars 2. But I want the game to reach more people who just, like, forgot that Guild Wars 2 exists. Put that on their map again.
Received critique videos for Guild Wars 2 are, and yes, they don't work if you have a specific intention. So right now I'm not really sure if I should shift my critique towards Guild Wars 2 to Twitch or YouTube live streams. Could be more interesting to respond immediately to other people's opinion, but yeah, Guild Wars 2 Twitch is an absolute dumpster fire. Anyways, the main focus in this video should be the new player experience of Guild Wars 2, which in my opinion is the worst I have ever seen. And like always, I won't have a clear structure to explain it, I just point out random ideas. First point being dungeons, and this is also by far the worst. Every MMO is built around the idea of grouping up to achieve things with
this is what I don't like. This is what I don't really. I knew this was gonna come, and like not because of dungeons, but like Guild Wars 2 should not be treated like any other standard MMO. If you come at Guild Wars 2 like a WoW player or a Final Fantasy 14 player, like if you come with that mindset, you're not gonna have a good time. It's like, yes, they're all MMOs, but like I feel like there should be a different genre of like within the MMO genre, you know, like what WoW does and what Guild Wars 2 do are completely different. So
within the game, even though a lot of MMOs these days are aimed more towards a single player experience. Even World of Warcraft is about to introduce AI, so you can play dungeons on your own. Final Fantasy XIV does a very similar thing, if I remember correctly. Nevertheless, the first real group content you encounter in Guild Wars 2 are dungeons, and now...
No. You actually don't encounter dungeons unless you go for them specifically. I did my first playthrough, like actual playthrough, I didn't even know dungeons exist. You don't encounter them. The first group the first group environment I encountered was actually fractals, because I looked for them. I was like, I knew that they exist, obviously, but I was like, I reached 80 and I was like, I want to try out fractals. That was my, which is, by the way, fractals are technically dungeons, but like, there are actual dungeons in the game. No one does them. So, I understand his point, and I think they should revamp dungeons to an extent, or like, not revamp, but like, make them more relevant, I'd say. I mean, they're relevant because there are some runes that you, and sigils, I think only runes actually, maybe sigils too, that you get specifically just from dungeon currency, and there are certain things that you can only get from dungeon currency, sure, but it's not something people do. And again, if you're just literally playing it like you're playing World of Warcraft, you're trying to dungeon farm, or like you will be going through dungeons. Either quest leads you to dungeons, or just the queue at level 15 is like, oh, let's. It tells you, it's like, hey, at level 15 you can queue to dungeons and you try it out and stuff like that. The games lead you to dungeons. Guild Wars 2 doesn't lead you to. Heck, Guild Wars 2 doesn't lead you to anything except like the green mark for your story. That's it. It really doesn't lead you to anything other than that.
No matter how you play at, I guess it is level 30, you will be directed towards your first dungeon. And veteran players, and I hope the developing team known as ArenaNet itself, are aware that dungeons are basically dead content. That essentially means the first instanced content new players are supposed to experience is dead, abandoned content. And this is straight up a massive game design problem. Imagine you join a party and the first thing happens is that you get slapped into the face. And moving on, the peak of bad new player
Again, I don't really agree
jump.
about the dungeons. Like, I don't even know why he says level 30 directs you to a dungeon. I believe the first dungeon is actually like level 20. There's no quest that leads you to a dungeon. Like, if you look for them, sure, they're there, but like you're never directed to them.
Just stop at the first instanced content you encounter. The moment you hit max level, the first time, shit is basically about to hit the fan. Essentially, everything hits you at once, without any sort of introduction. You never encountered squad composition, now you have to.
This doesn't hit you in the face at level 80. I don't really agree. This is a problem, like the buffs are just way too strong, and that's just how the game works. But you never have to think about it. I didn't even understand these buffs probably like half a year into the game, because I was just doing story and stuff. But like whenever I got into like a meta event, or whenever I got to whatever, it's like people ask you what you are. I'm like, I'm just DPS, even though technically I was quick DPS. I didn't even know, but I was just DPS. Like, well, I wasn't quick DPS. I knew that I could make myself quick DPS, but I was just like, I'm DPS, and then that's cool. You don't have to think about these things. You will get to know these things eventually when you're interested, but like, yeah, this has nothing to do with new players.
You instantly know how it works. You never got introduced on how to obtain gear, it just magically appears into your inventory. Now you have to figure that out. But the by far worst thing you have to understand now is what expansion to buy. And if I would encounter that way of selling a game in any other game today, I would straight up quit. It makes no sense. So you hit max level and now you want to raid. Well, you have to buy this expansion. Oh, you want to play all raids? Well, you also have to buy this expansion. But hold your horses, you want to get mounts? Well, you have to buy this expansion. But be aware, if you only...
Which other MMORPG doesn't do this? If you want to raid in WoW, you have to get the latest expansion. Like, you have to. Because no one, even though the other raids exist, no one does them unless like for mog farming. So yeah, you have to buy the latest expansion. Yeah, the mount part, okay, sure, the mount mastery, I get it, but like, like if you want to do these specific raids, you have to buy this specific expansion. I don't really, I kind of get his point. And it's like you don't get to do any raids unless you buy these expansions, but like, try to play World of Warcraft without buying the latest expansion. Like, I mean, retail, obviously, right? So like, it's gonna be kind of like the same problem, you know?
Only by this expansion, you don't get the first raids. Unfortunately. But wait, we are not done yet. You want to
By the way, you can still get the Raptor by default, so technically, I mean, you get a mount, but you don't get the variety of mounts. Also, he forgot that to get the Sky Scale, you need Living World Season 4, or you need Secrets of the Obscure. So.
have the turtle mount. Well, that's a whole different
Yeah, that's
expansion.
EOD.
And now you want to participate.
But again, it's like, well, what if I, oh, well, I want the fucking Dragonflight mounts, right? Like in the Dragonflight flying, then I have to buy Dragonflight. Obviously, in midnight it would be different, but again, I get the point of like the masteries, and yeah, but like you don't need the turtle, you don't need the rabbit, you don't need the gliding guy, you don't need the sky scale. It's not like you need these things. So it's like it's a feature of an expansion that can help you with certain things, but you never need it. And the only time you need like the turtle is like specific events that usually provide you the turtle anyways. So it's like you don't really need it, right?
Participate in a meta train. Yeah, well, too bad. Yes, you bought every expansion, but Living World Seasons. If you not buy the chapters within the expansion,
Which meta train? Wait, what? Wait.
well, you have to buy this expansion. But be aware, if you only buy this expansion, you don't get the first raids. Unfortunately. But wait.
That doesn't matter. Like again, so what if you don't get the first raids? The Path of Fire raids don't have anything to do with the Heart of Thorns raids. It's not like you need specific gear from Heart of Thorns to do the Path of Fire raids. So again, I get the point, but I don't think it's a very strong point.
Wait, we are not done yet. You want to have the turtle mount? Well,
but again, you want to have something. It's like, yeah. It's like, oh, I want to have access to End of Dragons, but I don't have the End of Dragons expansion. Well, then you don't have access to End of Dragons. Like, it's not a mandatory aspect of the game. None of these are, essentially. Now, the raids, in my opinion, raids should be like a mandatory aspect. I feel like raids are a vital aspect of an MMORPG, as much as I don't like a lot of raids. So that one I can kind of agree on. But the raids were also abandoned already. And again, Guild Wars 2 is really not focused around it. It's like it has that content, but really not focused around it.
That's a whole different expansion. And now you want to participate in a meta train. Yeah, well, too bad.
Yeah.
Yes, you bought every expansion, but Living World Seasons. If you not buy the chapters within the expansion, you still don't have everything. And
yeah. Again, like this point is kind of weird to me. I don't think this is a really good point. It's like, oh, you want to participate in something that only happens in the Living World DLC or expansion, whatever you want to call it. Well, then you need to have the DLC. It's like, yeah, no shit. It's like, what? What are we talking about here? Yeah, I mean, can you do like Shadowbringers without owning Shadowbringers? What are we talking about here?
yes, if you thought you could get the Dragon Mount without the extra chapters, that's your fault. But hold, if you buy Secrets of the Obscure, you could get the dragon without buying Living World chapters. But what did you say? You already bought Living World for the Dragon Mount? Well, yeah, that's on you. And all that is just straight up stupid. You want to play a game, but you have to purchase multiple different things. And the worst part is that you actually could make mistakes by buying the full game. And I really hate the idea of searching a solution for a problem.
I think this is such a weak point. It's like what are you supposed to be getting features of expansions without actually buying the expansions? I don't think because I think he separates mounts from content. The mounts are content. The mounts let you experience the content in a different way, but the mounts themselves are content of the game. So it's like, I don't really like this point. I feel like this is a very weak point. It's like, why would you be able to get content from an expansion that you didn't buy.
Problem just because the company is unable to fix it themselves. Why doesn't the current expansion also unlocks previous content? Why
would it? I don't understand why it would. No other game does this either. You usually, a lot of times, it's like in order to buy the new expansion, you need to own the previous one, which is even worse. This game allows you to, like, okay, like, you don't want the previous expansion, fine, we're not gonna charge you for it. Here you go. Here's the new one, though. In World of Warcraft, I believe you can't even do Dragonflight unless you owned Shadowlands. And to own Shadowlands, you usually buy the bundle, or like if the bundle might be up to BFA and then you have to buy Shadowlands, then you have to buy Dragonflight. At least that's what it was up until Shadowlands. I don't know if they changed it or anything like that. So it's like, this argument is like, I want to force you to buy all the previous expansions in order to get the new expansion. Meanwhile, Guild Wars 2 is like, no, you want to buy this expansion? You can play this expansion. Yeah, you're not going to get the other ones because you didn't buy them, but we can let you play the new one if you want. That's fine. I don't really see I feel like the argument here is like flipped on its head.
should I buy an expansion from 4 years ago in addition to 4 other expansions to play the whole game? In other games I buy one thing and have the whole game.
No, you never buy the one thing. You buy everything else on discount, but you buy everything.
I like it, I buy the next expansion, no matter if I buy it just for the additional content or to unlock the whole thing as a new player. Buying the whole game Guild Wars 2 is just annoying and could be frustrating if you
I would agree that they should bundle it better. There should be like a bundle of buying everything together instead of just like separately. But I don't agree of like other games allow you to just like buy the one thing and like you have access to everything else. You're buying everything else in order to buy the new thing. It's how it is.
make a mistake. There should never be the possibility of making mistakes.
And again,
by
I'm
buying
comparing to like WoW and Final Fantasy 14 because they're the most known ones. ESO, by the way, ESO is the exact same thing as Guild Wars 2. You only buy the content that you want to do. If you don't have, I don't know, the Dragon DLC for ESO or like expansion, whatever you want to call it, or like if you don't have the Isles of the Elves, what forgot all the names, right? You can still buy the newest one. You just won't have access to the other one. I don't think it's a problem. That's basically how horizontal progression games work. You only pay for the content that you want to do, and if you want to get more content, go ahead. Honestly, ESO does even better. ESO, especially if you have like the sub, you can just use coins to buy a non-current expansion because so you have a chapter which is an expansion, then you have a DLC basically. All the chapters, when they're not the current one, turn to DLCs, right? So you can actually buy the DLC with the in-game coins. Like they're not in-game, they are for money, but it's like if you pay a sub in ESO, you get a bunch of them for free anyways, and then you can buy like the DLCs with it, all except the current chapter. So it's like in ESO, in my opinion, it does even better, but I don't really agree with his argument at all.
a game. Anyhow, let's curveball back to the moment you hit max level, because the problem is not just that everything hits you at once, there's also no sense of progression.
I don't think anything hits you at once at all. I agree that there's no sense of progression in a sense, but that's what makes horizontal games. I mean, there is a sense of progression in horizontals in Guild Wars 2, but yeah, once you hit all ascended gear, there is no more sense of progression aside from completionism or increasing your quality of life, such as legendaries. But there is a sense of progression, but it's not a vertical as like something like WoW or Final Fantasy.
The gap between new players and veteran players is massive. If you want to play raids in Guild Wars 2, you need to have
knowledge
about
Yeah.
them. If you don't know anything about raids, it is nearly impossible to form your own group. That's why Guild Wars 2 ended up with 2.
This is true for every MMORPG. I mean, unless you're considering LFR in World of Warcraft. but like he's talking about specifically forming your own group. There is no queue mechanism for the raids. Yes, there's no queue. You have to go into a group. However, there's plenty. I won't say plenty. Okay, plenty is maybe too much, but there is often noob friendly raid runs with a commander that teaches people how to do the raid. It's not the most common thing, but you see them. I saw them often enough when I started raiding. There are plenty of guilds that do it as well. Is the game really good at introducing you to raids? No, but the game doesn't introduce you to anything. You actually have to go out and search for content. There's no queue for raids. It's not as easy as Final Fantasy 14 normal raids where you just queue and it's like you're probably gonna kill the boss within 1 or 2 tries, most of them within the first try. It's not LFR, but let's just say it like this. Excluding LFR and WoW, how easy is it to form a raid of when people don't know anything, even in a normal raid in WoW? It's not easy. It's really not easy. Like if you're a new player and you want to raid normal in WoW, because by the way, LFR, Mythic 0 gear. Like it's Dungeon Mythic 0 gear. So it's like there's no reason to do LFR aside from like maybe a story. Or Mogs, obviously. But like, yeah, if you want to do a normal raid and you need to manually get a group, yeah, good luck as a new player. What?
Ways of playing. A, you know it already, or B, someone has to teach you. Divide in Discord or something, which again is a solution to a problem ArenaNet is unwilling to fix.
Then everyone has that problem. Except, well, Final Fantasy 14 in my opinion does the raid the best, but I can't use Final Fantasy 14 as the standard for raids. They are the most enjoyable. They're the most easy to get into. Raids in Final Fantasy 14 are just overall probably the best raids I've ever done in terms of like accessibility, in terms of just learning curve and stuff like that. The normal raid, not the Savage, the normal raid. But what he says is true to any other like trials in ESO. Is the same shit. Yeah, maybe if you're a good player, you don't really need to know mechanics, especially like if you're not a key role like a tank or a DPS. If you're a healer in ESO, pretty much like you just don't stand in shit and just heal everyone. Just spam your heals like a motherfucker because you have infinite mana as a healer. But like other than that, it's like I don't know. I think the point is kind of weak regarding raids. I feel like raids is a content where they're, and again, I don't agree with it. It has to be this kind of content, but I think raids as a whole are content where you have to communicate with people, where you have to, like, you can't just go in blind, right? The only time you go in blind is the first few weeks when a raid is released, but there are no more raids released. There's not a whole lot of new players in Guild Wars 2. So yeah, usually you're gonna have experienced players in a raid.
Why is there at no point an introduction to group composition? I mean, it could be as simple as making quickness provider blue in the squad UI. If people play with others, they start to wonder, what is that blue icon? Maybe a healer or a tank or something else? And of course it is just a minor difference, but it at least gives a hint on how the game works. When you hit max level, you have to figure out everything on your own, or use external sources or ask for help outside the game, because...
But this is true for every MMORPG because, again, unless the MMORPG is brand new, and this is a problem with like just games that have been out for a while. Unless the game is brand new, you don't figure out anything anymore. That's just how it is.
Guild Wars 2 itself explains literally nothing to you. Straight up nothing.
100%.
And
I agree
everything
with that.
I said so far translates into the biggest problem. Feedback will never have an impact on the game. Okay, so PvP is basically dead. Do we try to do something to revitalize it? Okay,
I don't know why people say PvP is dead. The queue is faster than my League of Legends queue, and there's way more people playing League of Legends. The World v World is active on a regular basis. There's like, obviously there's the downtimes where you can do a lot of roaming. Like, what do you, like, I want to understand what people mean when they say PvP is dead. Like, I just don't understand what they mean by that. It's like, oh, like, no one plays PvP. Clearly, but enough people play. I don't know about the higher ranks, but, like, beginner ranks, I have like less than a minute and a half queue. Most times it's like 30 to 40 seconds, and I'm already like in a queue and like I get into a game, which is a lot faster than my League of Legends queue. So like I'm not really sure about like if I agree about the PvP is dead. There are issues with PvP, but I don't know if dead would be the.
Yeah, Alliance.
It's like PvP is as dead as like meta contents in like some expansions. Heck, I can even say that's like Dragon's End meta content is dead. Why? Because people only do it like once or twice a day, right? It's like, oh, well, what if I will log in at 1 p.m. and there's no one doing End of Dragons meta? Meta is dead. It's like, no, because like you're in a downtime. Like I just don't understand this. The game doesn't have that, like in my opinion, the Guild Wars 2 doesn't have that many players, but every content that it has, people are participating in it enough. So, like, I don't know. I don't agree with the PvP is dead. And by the way, I'm not even a big PvPer. I don't really care if PvP is dead. I'm just saying, it's like, it could, like, PvP could not exist in Guild Wars 2 and probably won't affect me one bit. But I don't think it's dead.
System and world restructuring delayed again. Is there any chance in 2024? Well, okay, I struggle with the UI. Any chance to reorganize parts of it, like boons or conditions?
The UI does need work. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I got used to it, but like, yeah, the UI definitely needs work. Or just being able to customize your UI better, like have it like personalize your UI would probably be great. But yeah.
There is a bug that prevents me from...
What?
Well, I guess I leave you alone with Reddit.
Do I make myself clear?
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening.
So I know there were discords between developer and a few selected players, but when conversations got leaked which were disrespectful to the player base, kind of, I mean it wasn't even real gamer talk, but PR wise it looked bad. I am not sure if these servers got shut down, I assume they are, but hey, at least the balanced preview streams were born out of it, so yeah, I count that as a win. And ArenaNet's habit of not maintaining the core game gives me that feeling that they basically don't care. Raids are too difficult to access. Should we make an extremely easy looking for raid mode? Nah, new players can look.
I'd rather have the raids as they are. They're not too hard to access. They're not easily accessible. But if you start making them easily accessible or hard to access, or like you want to try and change it, you're gonna have to start making different modes, and then you have like the normal, heroic, mythic bullshit going on in WoW. Which, like, again, in my opinion, there should be like a normal and heroic, and that's it. Like having different difficulties for the raid, in my opinion, is not great. Like too many, right? You already have normal mode, which in my opinion is not that bad. And then you have the like the challenge mode, which is like can get pretty fucking hard. But yeah, but it's like I don't know. I don't. Again, like if people want to raid, it's like if you're somebody who wants to raid, you will find a raid. And again, raiding in my opinion is a very like it's more guild content than it is a pug. Even though normal raids, especially T1 to T4, are pretty much like regular basis. You can find pugs for them. And I believe T7 or T5 are also puggable, but don't remember. One of the higher Ts as well. No, sorry, not T4. T1 to 3. Which one's T4? It's the underworld is T5, I believe, right? So T4 should still be manageable. Yeah, so T1 to T4. Maybe you skip a boss or two in like some of them. Yes, up to T4, and like usually you would skip like one or two of the end bosses, and then I believe people said T7 is puggable. I never pugged T7. I only did T1 to T4 on a regular basis with pugs, and I don't know the mechanics by heart, and it really wasn't. I know the general idea. I don't remember like bomb placement or whatever. It's like you kind of figure it out. It's like it's not that bad.
Look up discords to build groups, not our problem.
Most importantly is knowing your rotation and being able to perform your DPS realistically. Like that's like I would say 90% of every boss fight. Like knowing mechanics, yeah, but it's like you you have some DPS checks here and there.
Should we make obtaining gear more obvious? People will make guides anyways, so who cares? Should we talk to our player base in live streams to at least pretend we care? No, screw that. Just write a 300-word essay every 4 months and some people will make a video out of it.
I don't think this whole like, oh, the developers should have like a fucking podcast at this point and explaining their decisions. I don't think like they need to waste time on it. Have one person just write it down on paper, like on the document, and send it to people. And like that's it. Like you don't need the Diablo 4 campfire, whatever, every fucking time. Like you don't need, like, maybe for expansions, sure, that would be great. But I mean, look at WoW used to do this for, especially for Legion. They would do this, like they do the Q&A for Legion. That was so fucking useless, okay? No, you don't want to have that bullshit, okay? Like, it's a waste of fucking time. It's like you have to get these specific developers in a room. They have other shit to do. They don't need to deal with your bullshit. It's so much faster, and like it requires less resources to write down what the design philosophy is, instead of explaining it on a video that requires more people involved, more resources, more time wasted. No, don't do that. Just write it down. It's fine. It's not a big deal. You want to do it for like an expansion and like the features, if you had like a Guild Wars con, that sure. But no, I don't agree with this point. I don't like the campfire talks. And yes, again, even with the campfire talk, that like 4 hours of like the developers talking, you're gonna watch a 30-minute YouTube video. So it's like the whole 4 hours were wasted for the most part. Minimum 4 hours. 4 hours of like 2 hours of them talking, and then 2 hours of just the background bullshit that has to go into like making it happen.
And trust me, they will, because ArenaNet doesn't provide anything else anyways. And the list goes on and on and on. So I don't think Guild Wars 2 will die anytime soon. It most likely will stay forever and gets pumped with additional maps each year. But I'm not getting frustrated playing the game. I am getting more and more frustrated about how ArenaNet acts, which is basically doing nothing at all. And that will most likely never change. However,
I don't know if I agree that they don't do anything. I mean, I'm sure like people who've been playing for a while can probably say, will probably say different. And I heard this before, especially from T and Muckluck. And it's like, just because they're silent, I don't think like they're not doing anything. And I think they probably consider a lot of the stuff to be in a good enough spot, instead of wasting resources on it for stuff that like most players won't ever interact with. I feel like they have their own idea of what they need to do. And let's be real, unless they put out more content that people can buy, they will run out of funding for the game. Right? Yeah, cosmetics and stuff like that sells, but it's like, let's be real, MMORPGs are not the best funnel for new players, right? No MMORPG is really good at getting a lot of new players. Final Fantasy XIV did really well during that COVID thing because of like people from WoW just quit and fucking moved. But like MMOs as a whole are not very welcoming for new players. Why? Because this world has a history of like multiple, if not a decade, if not more, of years of like content and story and information that other people have been through. People who've been playing for a long time. Unlike something like a shooter, where it's like you have a shooter, bro, you can move from Battlefield 1 and to to like a COD and be completely fine. Even though these are completely different games, the physics are very similar. You can move from like Counter-Strike even to like Unreal to a COD or whatever. Even though the physics there are a bit different, like the recoil and stuff, a lot of aspects are extremely fucking similar, right? Being able to detect sounds, knowing what is a good position to have. All this, like a lot of stuff are like extremely similar. In MMORPGs, that's not the case, right? UI is usually very different. Graphics are usually very different. Feel of the game is very, very different, right? And it's not so much about aiming. MMORPGs, for the most part, are very chill in comparison to like a lot of other genres. And like obviously like people trying to make it an esport out of it, but like that doesn't work, right? Yeah, so like again, I get his point, but I don't think, again, in my opinion, Guild Wars 2 should definitely be more welcoming to new players. But I don't know. I don't agree. Like, in a lot of essences, I don't agree with what he's saying. Because even though he's right, it's more like, at what cost is he right? It's like, yeah, all these changes would be good for the game. Will it bring back, or will it bring enough money to sustain the game? I kind of doubt. I don't think Guild Wars 2 is like the most like financially successful MMORPG out there, because their monetization is extremely lax. Now, I don't know the data, obviously. I don't know how much people are spending on cosmetics and shit, right? But it's like, I spent, in a year that I played the game, other than buying the game, I spent maybe about $200 on cosmetics, because first of all, they look cool, and second of all, I want to support the game because it has no sub fee, right? So I spent $300 on the game, but I am not spending any more money. I can play this game for the next 10 years and not spend any more money, aside from like expansions. And the expansions they have are cheap, like $30, right? So it's like, from here on out, I am not a valuable customer, right? Just in terms of like monetary gain, right? And how many people have been playing this game and spent a lot of money already on all the cosmetics they want and are probably not spending any more money? And how much can you expect from a new player who just comes in to spend on this game, right? Maybe like me, maybe like $300, right? Like, I don't even know if it was 300, but it's about 200 cosmetics and whatever else, everything else costs, right? Like the living worlds, the expansion stuff. I'm pretty sure the living worlds were not very expensive. The expansions and all that, I'm pretty sure it's about $100 altogether. So yeah, they need to make money at the end of the day, right? So I don't think they're the most profitable MMO just because of their monetization. They don't have a sub fee. ESO is probably more profitable because they have cosmetic store, but they also have a quality of life sub fee, which is like, for the value, gives probably the most value out of a sub fee out of any MMO I've seen, right? So yeah, I don't think his points are not very good, because they are not much worse than the standard, or in some aspects, in my opinion, they're better than the standard of MMOs. Now, is the standard for MMOs for new players shit? Yes. Yes, but I don't think MMOs are like a great funnel for new players as a whole. Most MMOs don't really grow. They either maintain or they decrease through time. I don't think we have any MMO that has grown in the last whatever years. You have the spikes, like, an expansion comes out, you have the spike, but that's it, and then it goes back to maintenance. So yeah, like, I get his problems with it. I agree with the problems. I don't think it's something that Guild Wars 2 should really care about, though. Like, as a whole. As somebody who was a new player, and by the way, here's another example. And again, this is like not statistically the best fucking example, but I have a friend who was playing Guild Wars 2. I actually have two friends, right? One of them quit pretty fast. He got to like max level. He did some PvP, and then he went back to World of Warcraft. It just wasn't his cup of tea. Understandable. The other one loved the story, and the other one doesn't really play. He plays shooters. He did play WoW, but only PvP and stuff. But it's like, he's in a point in his life, I guess, that like he enjoys the story and he enjoys like not being pressured to play. He doesn't have as much time. The other one is younger, right? The other one's like a playboy, fucks around a lot, he just logs into a game to just like, he has more time to play and shit like that. The one who stayed with Guild 2 is the one that didn't have a whole lot of time. He has a family, he has like, he has real life responsibilities, he's growing his business and all that stuff, and it's like he doesn't have time to play, and Guild Wars 2 was perfect for him. Why? Because he can play it at his own pace. He logs in, he does a bit of questing, does the stories, like, okay, cool, like I don't have any more time, and that's cool. But he never felt like his time was wasted. Meanwhile, if you like play World of Warcraft and you're in a similar schedule, you'll be like, well, I just wasted $15 because I couldn't even play for like 10 minutes this month because I was too busy. So yeah, in my opinion, Guild Wars 2 is a lot more respectful with your time. It's a lot more respectful for your money. And yeah, so, and again, it really depends like what kind of player we're talking about. In my opinion, MMO players are not kids. They're like, you have the young ones, but like for the most part, you got like 25 to 30 plus year olds, right? These are people who usually don't have as much time. And in my opinion, Guild Wars 2 is way better for them than something like World of Warcraft. Unless again you're a dopamine addict and like you want that like new shit, new item level, new dungeons and all that shit, and it's like it's the same fucking shit, but it's like, you know, slightly harder and like, oh, dopamine hit, new item, whatever. Right. If you're like that, then sure. But like I would say most people in like the 30 plus who are like who got their dopamine hit and they're just like, yeah, whatever, it's like it's the same shit. I think Guild Wars 2 is substantially better. It has way more replayability, it has way more different activities to do, way more exploration, way more collectibles. Right? Obviously, it doesn't have pay to win, but does have pay for convenience. This is what it is. Right? It has its flaws, but in my opinion, Guild Wars 2 does a much better job for new players than any other MMORPG right now. Maybe, I don't know about RuneScape. I never played, but if you want to say RuneScape, like sure, I'll agree with you. I don't know, but in my opinion, Guild Wars 2 is probably the most accessible MMORPG that I've played, like by far. And it has its flaws, but still. Anyways, that's the video. Link to the original video in the description. Like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff and whatever. And I'll see you in the next one, in my next rant about something that no one cares about. Peace.